Let me tell you something straight. Respect is not given because you exist. It's earned by the way you carry yourself. The world doesn't care about your feelings. It responds to your presence. If you walk into a room like you don't belong, people will treat you like you don't belong. But if you walk into that same room with certainty, purpose, and quiet authority, people will adjust their tone. You don't demand respect by shouting. You command it by being someone who can't be ignored. Machiavelli once said, "It's better to be feared than loved," but here's the truth most people miss. He didn't mean cruelty, he meant strength. He meant you must project a presence that makes people think twice before crossing you. Not because you're violent, but because you're disciplined, because your boundaries are clear, because you're the kind of person who doesn't tolerate disrespect in any form, not from others, and not from yourself. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. If you laugh off every insult, if you excuse every boundary crossed, if you keep silent when you should speak, you are writing a manual for people on how to disrespect you. And once that book is written, it's hard to change the story. The first step in killing disrespect is deciding that you will no longer be an easy target. You will no longer give out free passes for behavior that undermines you. It starts with self-respect. You can't expect people to value you if you don't value yourself. Look at the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you handle challenges. Are you carrying yourself like someone worthy of respect, or are you moving like someone hoping to be liked? Stop chasing approval. Approval is cheap. Respect is earned through consistency, strength, and results. Then, control your reactions. Disrespect thrives on reaction. When you blow up, when you get loud, when you let your emotions take the wheel, you've already lost. The most powerful response to disrespect is composure. You don't have to prove your strength by raising your voice. You prove it by not letting anyone pull you out of character. Silence can be sharper than words when it's backed by presence. Finally, build your value. People respect what they need. If you bring excellence to everything you do, if you operate on a level they can't match, they will think twice before crossing you. Excellence makes you untouchable. You're not just another face in the crowd. You're the standard they measure against. So decide today, no more allowing people to treat you like you're less than what you are. No more bending so far to please people that you break your own spine. No more letting disrespect slide because you're afraid of conflict. Stand tall. Set the tone. Be the person whose respect is so valuable. Losing it feels like a loss no one can afford. When you raise your standard, you raise the way the world treats you. And once you do, never lower it again. Respect is not something that magically appears in your life the moment you want it. It doesn't show up because you're a good person, because you mean well, or because you think you deserve it. Respect begins with the way you treat yourself. If you walk into every room with your head down, apologizing for existing, people will take that as permission to overlook you. If you carry yourself with doubt, hesitation, and insecurity, they will mirror that energy right back to you. People respond to the signals you send, and if those signals say, "I'm not sure I belong here," they will treat you like you don't. Carrying yourself with respect doesn't mean arrogance or pride. It means owning your presence. It means standing tall, speaking with clarity, and showing through your actions that you value your time, your work, and your worth. If you speak in a way that is careless or sloppy, people will assume your words carry little weight. If you show up late or distracted, they will assume your contribution is not essential. Everything about the way you move communicates something about how you see yourself, and the world takes its cues from that. Self-respect is built in the choices you make when no one is watching. It's in how disciplined you are with your commitments. It's in how you handle your appearance, how you speak about yourself, and how you deal with failure. If you let yourself slide on your own standards, others will see that and own standards. Believe it's acceptable to slide on theirs when dealing with you. People respect consistency because consistency is rare. They respect discipline because discipline is difficult. They respect strength because strength stands out in a world that celebrates weakness. Think about the people you naturally respect without even trying. There's something about the way they carry themselves that makes you take notice. They don't beg for approval. They don't need to be the loudest voice in trial.
The room. And they don't change who they are based on who's watching. They operate from a place of self-assurance, and that draws respect like a magnet. The same principle applies to you. If you want to be treated as someone of value, you have to show through the way you live that you see yourself that way first. Even in small interactions, respect starts with you. If you let people interrupt you every time you speak without addressing it, you send the message that your voice
doesn't matter. If you let others waste your time without consequence, you tell them your time isn't valuable. If you accept being overlooked for opportunities without raising your standard, you're teaching them that you're fine with being invisible. Every moment you allow disrespect toward yourself without taking a stand is a moment you confirm to the world that it's acceptable. Self-respect is the foundation for every relationship, every interaction, and every opportunity you
will ever have. Without it, you will constantly fight for scraps of recognition. With it, you won't have to beg for respect. It will naturally be given, because your presence demands it. Disrespect often thrives because boundaries are either unclear or completely absent. When people don't know where the line is, they will keep pushing until they find it. And if you haven't set one, they'll keep going until you're left feeling small, powerless, and resentful. Boundaries are not
walls that isolate you from others. They are guardrails that protect your dignity, your energy, and your peace of mind. Without them, you invite chaos into your life. With them, you create a space where respect is the only acceptable currency. The first step to setting boundaries is knowing your own worth well enough to decide what you will and will not tolerate. Too many people compromise their standards out of fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of losing relationships. But every time you allow someone to step over your limits, you train them to see your silence as permission. Boundaries are not about controlling others, they are about controlling yourself, your response, your tolerance, your willingness to walk away when necessary. Boundaries are established through clear communication. You cannot expect people to read your mind. If someone is crossing a line, it is your responsibility to let them know. That doesn't mean exploding in anger or creating unnecessary drama. It means calmly and firmly stating, "This is not acceptable to me," and then holding that line no matter how uncomfortable it feels. People may resist at first, especially if they've gotten used to the old version of you who never spoke up. But over time, they will either adapt or remove themselves, and both outcomes work in your favor. Boundaries require consistency. You cannot enforce them one day and abandon them the next. If you say you won't accept a
certain behavior, but then you let it slide because you don't want to cause a scene, you've already weakened your own authority. People will always test your limits, sometimes without even realizing it. Your job is to make sure that test is met with the same unwavering standard every single time. Respect is not earned by making exceptions for everyone who pushes you. It's earned by showing that your principles are not negotiable. You also have to understand that boundaries are not selfish, they are essential. Protecting your mental and emotional well-being is not something you should feel guilty about. In fact, strong boundaries often lead to stronger relationships because they create clarity. When people know exactly what you expect and what you will not tolerate, there's no confusion, no guessing, no resentment brewing under the surface. Instead, there's a mutual understanding that allows respect to grow naturally. Boundaries are also a reflection of how much you value your own time and presence. When you say no to something that drains you, you're saying yes to something that strengthens you. When you refuse to allow someone to speak to you in a demeaning way, you're telling them and reminding yourself that your dignity is not up for negotiation. Disrespect often begins in the subtle, almost invisible moments when you allow someone's words, actions, or tone to pass without acknowledgement. Confronting it in the moment isn't about pass way to be say watcher.
Clarity. When you address disrespect directly, you send an immediate message that you are aware, you are confident, and you are not someone who can be quietly diminished. The longer you allow disrespect to go unchallenged, the more it becomes the default way you're treated. People tend to operate at the level you permit, so confronting it early prevents it from becoming a habit in your presence. The key is to understand that confrontation doesn't have to mean conflict. You can challenge
someone without raising your voice or losing your composure. In fact, the most powerful confrontations often happen in a calm, steady tone that leaves no room for doubt. This is not about trading insults or matching energy with energy. It's about drawing a line with such certainty that the other person knows there is no advantage in crossing it again. Many people mistake silence for weakness. So when you speak up, you break that illusion and replace it with a presence that demands respect. Timing is everything. The most effective way to address disrespect is to catch it immediately when it happens. Delayed reactions lose their impact because the moment has already passed. If someone interrupts you, belittles you, or mocks you, respond then and there. Not by overreacting, but by holding your ground. A simple, "I'm speaking, let me finish," or "That's not how you talk to me," can be far more powerful than a long emotional lecture. The shorter and more direct is your response, the stronger it lands. Body language plays an equally important role. How you stand, how you make eye contact, and how you carry yourself when you address disrespect communicates just as much as your words. If your shoulders are slumped and your gaze is downward, your words will lose power. But if you stand tall, keep steady eye contact, and speak in an even, unwavering tone, you send a signal that you are not to be dismissed or underestimated. People often remember how you carry yourself more than the exact words you use. It's also crucial to separate emotion from the situation. The goal is not to lash out, but to establish respect. If you approach the moment with rage or frustration, You risk losing control and giving the other person an excuse to shift the narrative away from their behavior and toward your reaction. By keeping your composure, you keep the focus where it belongs, on the fact that their words or actions were unacceptable. Direct confrontation also builds a reputation. When people know you will not let disrespect slide, they will think twice before trying it again. Over time, this creates an environment where those around you treat you with a higher baseline of respect, because they understand you will call out any attempt to undermine you. One of the most powerful ways to kill disrespect before it even begins is to master the art of silent power. Silent power is not about being passive. It is about exuding a
presence so strong that it commands attention without a single word. It's about the way you enter a room, the way you look at someone, the way your body language speaks volumes before your mouth ever opens. People read signals faster than they process words, and when your demeanor communicates authority, composure, and confidence, disrespect often dies before it has a chance to surface. This is a form of psychological influence that comes from deep self-assurance, and it makes people think
Twice before crossing you. In many cases, responding to disrespect with too many words can dilute your authority. Silence, when used correctly, can be more intimidating than any speech. Imagine someone attempts to belittle you, and instead of rushing to defend yourself or explain, you simply hold their gaze steady, unshaken. That unflinching eye contact sends a message, I heard what you said, and it doesn't move me. In that moment, the power shifts. They realize they cannot rattle you, and that realization is often more unsettling than any verbal rebuttal. This approach requires emotional control and patience. People who live in reaction mode tend to over-explain, over-justify, and overcompensate when challenged. Silent power is the opposite. It's grounded in knowing your worth so deeply that you don't need to perform for validation. You don't need to fight for every inch of dignity because it is already rooted in who you are. When someone tries to disrespect you,
You're not pulled into their emotional trap. Instead, your stillness becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront their own behavior without the distraction of your emotional reaction. Physical posture is a critical part of this. Shoulders back, chin up, and an unwavering presence communicate dominance in the most subtle way. When paired with controlled breathing and deliberate minimal movements, you project an aura of stability and control that's hard to challenge. This is why those who possess true silent power rarely need to raise their voices. Their energy alone creates an invisible boundary. Another element of silent power is the strategic use of pauses. In conversation, most people rush to fill silence because it feels uncomfortable. But when you own that silence, you create tension, and tension makes people pay attention. If someone throws a disrespectful remark, instead of immediately replying, let a moment pass. That pause is a psychological
disruption. It makes them question themselves, wonder if they've overstepped, and sometimes even correct their behavior without you saying a word. Silent power also carries the benefit of unpredictability. If people can't easily read you, they can't easily manipulate you. When you don't reveal every thought, feeling, or reaction, others are forced to operate with caution. They can't anticipate whether you'll respond with words, action, or simply nothing, and that uncertainty
keeps them in check. The less predictable you are, the harder it is for anyone to feel comfortable showing you blatant disrespect. One of the most effective ways to destroy disrespect is by building an unshakable reputation for strength, competence, and results. People might doubt your words, but they cannot argue with consistent performance. When you become the person who delivers, who follows through, who exceeds expectations time and time again, disrespect starts to fade because you're right.
Reputation speaks louder than any self-defense could. This is not about seeking approval or trying to please everyone. It's about setting a standard so high that others have no choice but to acknowledge it. A strong reputation is like armor. It shields you from petty attacks and forces even your critics to tread carefully around you. A reputation built on competence doesn't happen overnight. It is forged in the countless hours you dedicate to your craft when no one is watching. It's
the extra effort you put into the small details that most overlook. Over time, those small wins stack up, and people start to associate your name with excellence. When your work consistently stands out, you shift the balance of power. Suddenly, it's not about whether people like you, but whether they respect the undeniable results you bring to the table. This is a silent yet powerful form of dominance that disarms disrespect before it can take root. In the realm of influence, perception,
When you walk into a room with a track record of success, people perceive you differently. They may not know every detail of your journey, but they know enough to approach with caution and professionalism. It becomes risky for them to disrespect you openly because your reputation has already positioned you as someone who matters, someone whose voice carries weight. This is where the psychological element comes in. When others realize that disrespecting you could damage their own
credibility, they become more measured in how they treat you. Building this kind of reputation also involves holding yourself to an uncompromising personal code. You cannot demand respect from others if you are careless with your own standards. Every action, every commitment, every interaction is an opportunity to reinforce who you are and what you stand for. People watch more than they listen, and over time they will treat you based on the patterns they see. If you are consistently on